Everything that you have spoken about in our discussion today shows that you think really differently. You know, that you started from a farming family that took a bit of a U-turn, you got yourself back in, and since then you've not just done what generations before have done. You've used the knowledge that you've learned through your experiences and you've just thought differently. And I think that's what's really nice actually, to watch how you and June are developing the business. Welcome to Stock Talk, a podcast that draws on experience and advice from people working in the livestock industry to cover a range of interesting topics. I'm Kirsten Williams, and I'll be here every month with a new episode. In today's episode, we are going to be joined by Gordon Whiteford, who has entered the industry as a new entrant. He has built a really, really innovative business, and we're going to hear about the different enterprises that they operate. I have watched your farming business grow over the last number of years, and I think it's just such a lovely story of how you have started as pretty much as a new entrant, haven't you? And how you have completely and utterly grown your business to what it is today. So I wonder if we maybe, I don't know, do we go back 20 years or do we actually go back to little Gordon, to when you were a boy, and how it all started and how you ended up in the industry?
Yeah, it's funny. I had to go and speak to the high school recently, and I put a picture. I found a picture. It was me. I think it was my dad's tractor, 135. I'd have been about the same age as my middle son. Must have been about 4 or 5 year old. So I put that up, and So I was brought up on a farm, but my father, he was the eldest son, he had two brothers, and there's two things happened. His health, he had problems with his back, and he wasn't really fit to carry on working the farm. And he had an ambition to leave the farm, and he retrained, he went back to college and university to become a minister, which is a bit of a career change. So I was about 10 years old when I left the farm. So typical kid, you brought up on the farm, you're going to be a farmer, and that's and that was kind of ripped away from me. And kind of moved from the west coast of Scotland to east coast of Scotland to St Andrews. So that's my father went to university, and totally different. Chalk and cheese. You couldn't get any more different culture. And moving from the farm to the town, and it's like, just don't like this.
You learned to
So
talk posh. Is that what you're trying to
yeah,
say?
well, I had a really strong Ayrshire accent, and you're just a Ouija. So my accent's mellowed a little bit, I think. And then my father got his first charge was at Ardis here in Petty, which is just outside Inverness, and that's what took us. So I was in my last year of school. I was 15 when we moved up, so that was 1996. So I did my final. I was too young to leave at six. I wasn't 16 to halfway through fifth year, so I finished my hires my fifth year, and then I just farming daft. My parents didn't want me to go into farming, but I was just like, no, I want to go to agricultural college, and you know, um, probably has rose tinted glasses on at that point and think I want to drive a tractor and do things. You don't really know what you're going to do, but it's you set a path for yourself and you go for it. But
And what do they think now that you've achieved everything that you and June have achieved?
yeah, I think they're quite proud of what I've done. There wasn't, you know, the normal route is you inherit the family farm and you carry on. But my father said something to me when I first started. So it's 20 years ago I started out on my own and with the hens. And my father said to me one day, and it never meant anything to him at the time, but he says, at least you don't have to share it with your siblings. What's yours, what you build up is yours, and you don't have to share it. And it didn't mean anything at the time, but over the years, and I see other family farms, and brothers and sisters and uncles and that, and falling out, and you're like, God, my father was, and I'm actually glad. Had I still been in the farm, I'd have ended up working with my uncle and my cousins, and I would have been in the same situation that I see a lot of other farms in. And I thought, it's wise words that never meant anything at the time, but over the years, I just thought, I appreciated that. I was always good at. I did accounting and finance. I was never particularly brilliant at school. I hated English and that, but I was good with numbers, and we did one of the subjects I did was accounts, and I just loved it. I just loved balancing the books and things like that. And my accountant, parents even would tell me, "Oh, you should go and be an accountant." I should be an accountant. Go and get a good job and go to university. I was like, I do not want to sit in front of a computer. It's just not me. I just, there's no way. So I suppose it was always a bit if I wanted to run my own business one day and I wanted my own farm, and it was a bit of a pipe dream. It's a little bit like saying I'm going to be a footballer. It's highly unlikely it's ever going to happen. And that's maybe just down to not believing much in yourself, I suppose, when you're younger, maybe. I don't know. But you take baby steps and it's amazing where you can go. It's.
Yeah. And it's quite interesting what you said there about what the advice your father had said or what he'd said to you about you don't want to fight with your siblings or work with your uncle. It's as a new entrant, there's a lot of challenge, isn't there? And it's hard to get started up, and the financial side of it, the skill side of it.
Yeah.
And you always look at those established businesses and you think, crikey, they're so lucky they just get handed that. But actually there is that other side, isn't there?
Yeah.
That
Yes.
there is fallouts or succession problems. It actually is very advantageous. There's nobody to tell you you've done something wrong either. You find out yourself too, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I've learned everything the hard way, and sometimes that's better to learn from your mistake. I think we all learn from our mistakes. I mean, it's just natural learning. But I've never had that. I never ever worked alongside my father and get taught that way. And that whole period, I left the farm at 10, just when that's when you start getting a shot of the tractors and like so like I knew a lot about farming at that age, obviously, but I wasn't actively doing much. And so from a period of 10 to 16, I wasn't really anywhere near a farm apart from visiting. I've got a lot of aunts and uncles, quite a big family, and most of them are all farming community. My sister married a dairy farmer, and so I always had that strong connection. But when I left school at 16, I was lucky. Somebody took me on for a year before it was my practical year before I went to college, and I learned a huge amount that year in driving tractors and a lot of what I learned, I would have learned gradually over that previous 5 years, experience and things like that. So you do feel like kind of missed out a little bit. But yeah, as you say, the financial thing is farming is not the most profitable industry. I'm not going to say it's not profitable, but it's capital intensive. It's if you've got money, there's an old saying, how to make £1 million farming, start with 2 million. So yeah.
Yeah. So you finished school, you then went to work on a farm. When did you actually bite the bullet and start yourself?
So I did. So I thought I kind of Ayrshire route. So I was determined I was going to Auchencrieve rather than Craveston, which was closer. And I think it was just really get as far away from your parents as possible. And then I did HND, and a lot of the boys I went to college with, they stayed on and did honours degree, and I think I was just impatient and just wanted to crack on. So I thought I wanted to go to Australia for a year, so I took a year out and just did a bit of work through machineering and various farmers, just self-employed. And then I went to Australia for a year, and then I came back and did the DEF-bomb course at Craveston, which was a really, really good course. I really enjoyed that. It was just a different caliber of lecturer, I think, because they were working in the field and advising businesses anyway, and they were like lecturing us. So I did that, and then didn't really have a plan after that. But the farm that I worked on when I left the school, which was Milton of Connage at Ardassia, they had converted to organic and started. They're just about to start making cheese. That was the plan. So they can ask me, would you come back and sort of help manage a farm, and that will free us up to go and make cheese and what have you. And I'll come and speak to you about it. So house a job and all that. So that's right. We'll do that. I probably would have went down south maybe, and other than that. But so I did that for 3 years, and I did. It was a mixed farm. There's arable, there's sheep. There's a the dairy as well, and but I was working for two brothers. and I just kind of wanted to work for myself. I just wanted to lay my own path, sort of thing. Just this niggle. I just wanted my own farm. Farming's hard work. To go and do it for somebody else, there's better paid jobs than. So I looked at hens. I think what started that off, I had no poultry experience, but we had got a talk from, when we were at Auchencrew, John Campbell, Sir John, came along and spoke to us, and just really inspired. And at that time, I was at college, late 90s, farming was all doom and gloom. We had a BSE crisis, and it wasn't profitable, and I think farmers tend to be quite negative a lot of the time anyway, and he was really positive, and he started from very little, and the bank wouldn't give him the money, and so he just how he managed to build it. I mean, he built up an incredible empire. So I think that must have kind of stuck with me a little bit, and I just wonder if should we look at eggs, and you don't need a lot of ground. So I went to see one or two people with organic hens, and then I phoned John up and says, would you buy organic eggs off me if I start producing them? And he just said, just get on with it. Can I come and see you? And he just said, just get on with it. Just build your shed. We'll buy your eggs. Then come and see us. And I was all right, fair enough. So it was just like there was no contract. It was just a gentleman's agreement. We'll take your eggs. So that was 2005, and it's hens like any other stock. You give them what they need to feed, water, look after them, ventilation's right, then they'll do what they're supposed to do. And there's one or two people, gave me some good advice and what have you. But we then doubled that up to 3,000 is maximum flock size for organic. So then we doubled that up to 6,000, 2008, and then the recession came along, and no one wanted organic eggs, and I was like, well, what do I do now? We've kind of invested this money and what have you. So we're lucky that the 2012 cage ban was coming along. So there was a guy, small egg producer, maybe 3,000 birds, but he had old style back to cages, and he was up near Tane. So he'd let an egg round. So he just wanted to keep his customers going. So we bought his grader off him and the egg round. We kind of upgraded all his customers to, it's going to be free range eggs now. And we never really sold them as organic. We sold them as free range, just because, that was the kind of market. And we're tied to produce them organically because we rented the ground as organic, so we had to keep the status of the ground organic. So really all we're doing for a couple of years. So we stopped supplying Glenrath in about 2010, and then for a couple of years we're probably just trading water. And then Lower Mill of Tynet farm came up, just seen the advert in the Crown Estate, and I thought, God. And at that time I was engaged to June, who was finishing her training in Aberdeen. So if we got married and stayed in Ardennasea, she was going to have to bide in Aberdeen during the week and come back or whatever. So I said to her, this farm's right in the middle. I'll commute to Inverness to see my hens, and we'll shift it through over, a couple of years, and you can just commute to Aberdeen. And she just thought it was absolutely nuts. But I went to see the farm, and I thought, I just knew, I just felt like this is right. And so we're lucky enough. I think there's maybe 25 people, including yourself, that tendered. So and we moved through. I commuted one way, June commuted the other way. There's a couple of years it was just we're never off the road, and just slowly but surely you get everything transferred and you make life a bit simpler. It took us 7 years, 2019, before we completely gave up the original site. If I had the money, we would have done it in a year. But you work with the cards that you're dealt with and you've got at the time. So
difficult as well when you've taken on an egg run that's in that area. It's hard to move away from that. A guaranteed customer right on your doorstep too. And it's your foundations too. It's where you started, which is always hard to kind of walk away from.
And Inverness is still a strong. Like we put a van through to Inverness 3 times a week. So we used to go as far as Tane, And then we had a guy luckily came to us looking for a price for eggs. He was going to start a sort of wholesale supplying veg and stuff for him. I says, look, buy your eggs off me and I'll give you all my customers north Inverness. So that still goes on. So we just meet him in Inverness and give him what he needs. And, at one point I can remember I was doing 1,000 hours a week in the van, just going and I was like, can I do this?
That's a lot of mileage. Not very good carbon footprint, Gordon.
No.
So that was you then. You were into Lower Mill of Tynet 2012.
2012, yeah.
Not long after that, you did a Nuffield.
Yeah, so it was 2014. So I think I was a little bit... I didn't jump into converting the farm to organic. I was a wee bit scunnered with organic. I didn't think it was maybe just... I kind of fell into organic when we were through Inverness. And the farm I worked on, and the neighbouring, was 2 or 3 neighbouring farms, like Castle Stewart's under a golf course now, but it was organic dairy, quite a good dairy. And I think it was the largest area for organic ground in the UK at one point, of arable land, probably not the hills, probably bigger, but so I kind of had my eyes open to that opportunities, and a lot of people speak about organic, and it's like, you've got a tin hat on, especially when I go back down to my roots in the Ayrshire. Like, you'll find 1 or 2 organic farmers now, but 20 years ago, they didn't exist,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so with the recession and the organic egg sales, just the market not there, I thought it's locals more. People are, I'm supplying local shops. They want local eggs. They're not bothered for organic or not. And especially with eggs, it increases your cost quite a bit. So you need that premium. You can't produce them organically and sell them as free range. It's just, we did for a little while, but we're getting the end price, but it wasn't sustainable what we were doing. So really I was kind of sort of going down a food scholarship and just looking for inspiration and what have you, but I didn't go out to look at organic. But I came back more thinking that organic was the right direction to go in. For some reason, when you go in, I think when you go to Europe and Scandinavia and that, the market's a lot bigger for organic. It's a lot more, it's always seen as a niche over here, but it's more mainstream over there. And when you ask to go and see, I want to go and see farmers, what innovations, what's happening out there, quite often they take you to organic farms because that's the ones that are looking for answers.
Yeah.
And what really inspired me, I think, the Nuffield kicked off. We went to the conference was in Kent, so we went down there, and so we were hearing all the previous scholars presenting, and there's some big arable guys coming back, and they're talking about soil health and no-till and cover crops, and they were almost speaking as if they were farming organically because they were trying to reduce their fertilizer and stop chemicals and all these things. One of the places we went to America for 3 weeks, and I kind of started looking at soil, and so I was looking. My project was supposed to be like improving bird welfare and free range, So, we're big in free range in this country, but a lot of the big units, how free range actually are they? The number of birds that go out in the middle of winter and you've got waterlogged ground and all that, and you think, is it really the best thing for the hens? You can see why they decided to put them in cages, sort of thing. So I went to go and see what they did everywhere else. I really started looking at the soil and diversity, and it kind of fitted with what we could do at home. I always wanted to start a dairy and cattle and sheep, and rather than just all your eggs in one basket, so just stick with hens. Really, and we're kind of going down that road anyway. And I really came back from my travels, and I kind of looked at, if you put farming in a spectrum, and you've put organic at one end, and you've got conventional intensive farming at the other end, conventional farming is coming closer to organic. It's not the other way around. And if you look at it from the point of view that, well, actually, a lot of chemicals have been banned. There's more and more regulations and restrictions. So, that bars came a lot closer than what it was 10, 20 years ago. And even look at antibiotics. We're now getting told to use dry cow therapy, selectively. We were doing that organic. That's how we did it in organic dairies 20 years ago. And now conventional dairies are getting told that's the best practice. So if you went into a conventional farm and says organic farmers were doing this 20 years ago, they're not going to laugh at you. Organic farmers aren't more progressive, but in some ways they are. And I suppose you're just not the whole thing about organic. You're not pushing animals hard, and you're just working a bit more extensively. But you know,
You'll have greater resilience within your system as well.
yeah,
In the year that the fertilizer price went sky high, that 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 wasn't going to have a knock to your
we're not,
business.
yeah, because we're not
If
buying
an
fertilizer.
antibiotic is removed from the market, again, it's not just going to have
Yeah,
that same knock to your business. It's almost put you future proofed you ahead of time in a way, hasn't it?
you're less reliant on chemical companies, and I've spoke to a few farmers in recent years, and in the fertilizer thing, the cost actually made a lot of people stop putting fertilizer in the grass, and they started to realise actually getting as much grass as what they were before. You know, they just have to think slightly differently. I think that one of the biggest problems is that a lot of the grass varieties are actually bred to perform to nitrogen. So if you don't put nitrogen on, you're not going to get the yield. But well, we need to change the grass variety. You need to go one step back. And it's a bit. I think Einstein said that he didn't fix a problem with the same thinking it created it in the first place. And it's
Yeah,
just
and
that's
it's
a
your low nitrogen soils is exactly where you're going to find your clovers as well, aren't they?
yeah, yeah. So you need, and there's been a lot of research, I think, in recent years, whereas if you've got a diverse sward of grass, so not just clovers and different species of grass, the more diversity the better, then that is actually outperforming a conventional rye crop with nitrogen, the diverse crop with no fertilizer. Um, so yeah, I would like to say we are doing fantastic here, but I mean it hasn't rained this year, and the most important nutrient is rain.
It's been a hugely challenging year, definitely. And as well as with your Nuffield, as well as looking at different systems, you also one of your key points, as far as I think, is your brown versus your white hens. That was a key learning point as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I never. It's a funny thing because you write your report and you write your recommendations and all that, and that's not even one I put in the recommendations. It's just one of the things I was looking at was it was quite topical at the time was beak trimming. So when we conventionally get your hens, they're infrared beak trimmed at the hatchery, and what they do is just take the very tip of the top beak off. But it is still an element of pain there when that tip falls off. It takes about 2 or 3 weeks. And Europe was banning it, so Scandinavia had already banned it, I think, at that point. And the Netherlands was looking at banning it, and Germany was looking at banning it. And the UK was speaking about it, and we kept going, we can't do it. And it's all very well for them to do it over there, but they're predominantly white birds. They're not all white birds. So I went over to the Netherlands, and I think it was a 9,000 bird, maybe more than that. They had a barn shed, and they were trialling it, brown birds with full beaks. But those were quite white birds. So it was just, you're just in the past and speaking about the white birds. I never really dived into them too much. And I just came home and I was like, it's not a white egg market. It used to be. Back in the 60s, it would all be white eggs. And I think they just went out of fashion. And everybody told me, you won't sell white eggs. It's just, so watch me. So I spoke to one or two of my customers. We've got a bakery which takes a lot of eggs off us. And I was like, you boiled a bit of shell colour, and I was like, well, goes in the bin. And in terms of the exact same. And so I took a wee bit of a punt, and the egg quality is actually a lot better. The shell's a lot better. One of the things, because we are actually, we do a lot of food service, but you're speaking to your customer, so you're getting feedback. So you learn a lot. You put eggs to a packer, you never get you get feedback from the packer if the packer's got an issue. But that's normally due to there's too many cracks or dirts or the stamp's not right or something like that. It's not the actual quality of the egg. So speaking to chefs and that, and sometimes an egg, once the hens get older, it became apparent that the eggs are really useless for poaching. And even for frying, sometimes they go just the albumin, the white just is it goes too watery, and it's quite often more of a problem in summertime because the hens are drinking more water, and it's just puts in. But the best quality eggs is also off a younger hen, and I could draw a line in it. Once the birds were getting to about 60 odd weeks of age, any of my customers that were poaching with eggs, they start complaining. So, how can we get fresher eggs? And I was like, we are short eggs just now. Literally, you're getting them as soon as they're out the hen. They're collected this morning and I delivered them, and you're complaining they're not fresh enough. So we just, it's as long as you can complain, I can put eggs off of younger birds into you because we've always got more than one age. So you work to your customer and give them what they want. And what we found with white eggs, when the hens were, you could take them a lot older. And also things like the other thing with the white. So a complaint I actually got from the same bakery was that they actually phoned up and said, "You get any older eggs?" I was like, "You want older eggs?" So why do you want older eggs? I said, because I'm having a nightmare peeling them. So when you boil an egg, so the ladies boil some of them for the kitchen, they boil them and they can't get the shells off them because the white comes away with the shell. I says, well, put them aside. We're already giving you the oldest eggs because we know you can use them quick enough, so we can use that as a bit of rotation. But just stick them aside for a week. So that's what they do. They've got a shelf that they stick them aside, and they'll use them a week behind. But the white eggs, the way the shell's built, the white doesn't stick to them the same. So you can actually boil an egg, and the shell no bother. So another customer was actually saying, actually quite happy to pay us more for the eggs because the shells they're easier to shell. So it was actually saving them so much time shelling the eggs compared to brown eggs. So it's good to get feedback. It's good to have that interaction with a customer, and it's as farmers we quite often don't.
Now in the supermarkets, you get the mix, don't you? You get
Yeah.
you get brown and white in the same box, even.
So so that's kind of what So when we first started, it's about 8 years ago, and we thought, right, we need to explain to a customer why the eggs are white. So we've got a label made up, and it's white eggs from white hens, and we really quickly realised a customer doesn't notice. So if you went to a farmer's market and you get lovely brown eggs there, folk would come, oh, I like a nice brown egg, But when we first get white eggs, you're so excited about them. So you're going into your customers' shops and what have you, and here's your eggs this week. And most of my customers didn't know we're going to start doing white eggs. So you walk in, you're expecting comments, and they never commented. And I was just like, set them over there. And so you're sticking them in your face, eggs are white. Oh, why are they white? They never noticed. And you're walking down the street, and you always get, clap your hands, don't try, you always get wise cracks. But no one ever stopped me and goes, well, I never see white eggs. I can count on one hand in 8 years how many times somebody's commented that the eggs are white. So we took that off the boxes, and we used to put them into shops. We put half brown and half white, and it really depended on who was selling them. And there was a market stall in one of the shopping centres in Inverness, and it was an old couple that ran it. And I said, well, what most folk are doing is we're putting half and half, and folk can choose, And we put the eggs in, and we'll do that. So put the eggs in the Monday, and by the Tuesday, oh, you need to take that white eggs away. No one wants them. No one likes them. You need to take them away, And it's like, I literally just dropped them off yesterday. I mean, it's like Monday. It's the quietest day of the week, So what we started to notice was if you didn't put brown eggs in and you only gave the shop white eggs, people would come in. Like people, the creatures of habit. So if you're used to buying brown eggs, psychologically, I think you just buy brown eggs, or you just pick whatever. So it ends up being 50-50. If there's no brown eggs, they're forced to buy the white eggs. And it's not an issue; they just buy it. But then they realise that they're better, and they go buy. So we used to start seeing our egg sales would double. They're always steady, and then they would double to wherever we're putting them. So so I spoke to a few packers, and it's like, the customers, you're not contracted to put brown eggs into a pack. Just put white eggs in. Who's going to pick it? Because they're so conditioned into a white egg's pale. That's a second. That's normally pulled out, but they're supposed to be white, and that's what a lot of the packers are doing now. They just, if it's brown eggs coming over the pack or the grader of white eggs, it doesn't matter. They all go into the same pack. So they sometimes end up getting mixed or brown or white. And
I wonder if you did a survey of all, I don't know, everybody that's within the UK, the whole population, and said, why'd you get a white egg? Why'd you get a brown egg? How many people would actually answer it? So white chicken or a brown chicken? It'd be such a small number, wouldn't it?
it's such an interesting fact. But I mean, to tell what colour egg you get from a hen, it's to do with the colour of their ears.
Is it?
So you actually get a white hen that lays a brown egg, and you get a brown hen that lays a white egg. So the proper white hen, which really originates back to your white leghorn, and everybody always goes, oh, hens have got ears, and I was like, yes, they can hear.
Do you know what? I didn't want to sound silly and say that.
But well, you were thinking it, and you're trying to visualize a hen's ear because they don't stick out. It's just a wee hole inside it, and they've got wee lobes inside. But if they've got white ears, they'll lay a white egg, and if they've got red ears, they'll lay a brown egg.
There you go. Every day's a school day, isn't
Yeah.
it?
So you'll have to Google that to check that I'm not.
Yeah,
Your
fact
legs.
check you.
So it is, and that's the thing, with farm shop when you're speaking to customers, and they just love facts like that. It's just, it's interesting. People have lost connection with where the food comes from.
Absolutely. Yeah, massively. And it's these fun facts, like the chickens have got ears and the colour of their ears, things like that people remember.
Yeah.
It's part of it's part of the education, isn't it?
It sticks, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So as well as the chickens, last year, 2024, you guys got quite a big award. You got a big award down at the Scottish Farmer Awards, Sustainable Farm of the Year. And that would incorporate your organic, your chickens, but you've also got some other enterprises going on as well. Do you want to speak to us about how you got going with the micro dairy and what you're doing with the dairy?
Yeah, so I mean, I think ever since we came to the farm, I thought I could put some cows on here. I never really said too much about it. I thought we didn't have a lot of acres, so it wasn't really a bright idea. But we had spoke to Omsco at the time, and their tanker passes. So at the time, Mulla was pulling out Aberdeen, so all the dairies were given up, and we are Murrayshire, but we're also historically Banffshire. And the last 3 dairy farms in Banffshire all gave up about 10 years ago. There's probably about 700 cows between them. So I like to tell people I'm the largest dairy farm in Banffshire because milking 30 cows, and there's 2 other dairies in Murrayshire. So we're a pretty rare breed. I think, even whole Aberdeenshire, I think there's only about 14 dairies. So they've disappeared. The place to produce milk is where it grows grass, where it's wetter down in the west, down in the southwest. So the initial plan, if a tanker could come in, we just want some cows, get a wee dairy going. But we bought some heifers, some heifer calves, because there was a bit of a milk oversupply at that time. So we bought some calves quite cheap. And I thought we'll rear them up, we'll go to the ground, feed them, in the hope that we'll put in some infrastructure in and milk them. So that was fine. And then Brexit vote happened. And organic, I think they lost, cheese that was going to America, whatever. They lost the market share, and Omsco kind of turned. We can't take your milk, can't give you a contract. And by that time, Forest Farm, Aberdeen, they put a milk vending machine in, and we had a vending machine for eggs, and we'd seen the milk ones in Europe, and I wasn't sure how it would work here because everybody wants semi-skimmed, no one wants whole milk, and you just want to sell whole milk. You want to keep it simple. You don't want to start separating milk. So, but I seen how successful they were, and I thought really that's the route we have to take. Just start with a small number of cows, see where it takes us, and we'll sell our own milk at the bottom of the road. And it'll, milk's an interesting thing because it brings people buy it 2-3 times a week. They want it fresh, so they get into the habit of coming to you 2 or 3 times a week. With eggs, they could buy them once a month, and then they forget. We'll just get eggs in the supermarket this week, So encourages it. For the farm shop, it works really well. So we started with about 10 cows. I was always quite keen on, I'd never worked with them, but robotic milkers. I actually did a dissertation at college on them, comparing the cost of installing compared to a traditional parlour. And I don't know if I really wanted to be tied to milking cows every day. Get a robotic milker, and at least the robot's got its own sort of routine. So I mean, you can tell MD to shut and open gates if we have to go away, things like that. I thought. So there's a second-hand one coming out of Aberdeenshire, so I didn't have to come very far. So I thought, I'll put that in. It's not a big investment. It would cost me the same to put in a parlour, even second-hand parlour with the building work. So, it's plug and play almost. So if it doesn't work, whatever, we'll go with it. So that was 2020, just over 5 years ago. And it was COVID. If we had started even 6 months earlier, we would have made a fortune. But COVID really put a spanner in the works trying to get the Environment and Health out to passes to allow us to sell it.
Of course.
We're dumping milk for the first couple of months because we weren't allowed to sell it. Couldn't even give it away for free, So that was really frustrating. Since then, there's been lots of vending machines popped up in some of the dairy areas, and you go and speak to them, and they've never had an EHO on site, But they put us through the hoops that we had to jump through to get it up and running, and it's fine. We got there in the end.
But when you did get going back to that kind of educating of the public, it was amazing how far people travelled to come to get your milk and your milkshakes, wasn't it? And I guess with being COVID, there was quite a lot shut, and having something to go to that was effectively, you've got a 24-hour shop, haven't you, with the vending machines? You don't need staff or people there. It was a huge area that people were travelling to come to you.
It was pretty. They come regularly, about an hour and a half's drive. And for some reason, Fraserburgh, Mintlaw, Turriff, that you're speaking to young people in at night, they're always from that area. And we're 10 miles from Elgin, and rarely do you ever speak to anybody that comes from Elgin.
Is that
And
right?
I don't know what it is. I've got a theory. Our farm is the very first AB postcode. And the neighbouring farm, which we got added on in 2019, so that trebled their acres, it's an IV. So we're literally the very first AB postcode. And if you go to like Spabey and Falkovers, it's all IV. And I don't know whether there's a psychological thing there. If you're in Elgin, or it's an AB postcode, I'm not going to go through to Aberdeen. But when you're in Turriff, you've got an AB postcode, it's not that far. I don't know. That's my theory.
Yeah.
But there seem to be more people come from the east than the west.
Okay,
So we started. It was just plain milk the first year, and I think it was the 1st of August, 2020. We got to go ahead to start selling the milk, and we did with a P&G article, and it was queued, and it was it's fantastic, it's real milk, and a year later, there's a few farms down south doing milkshakes, and that's I need to try that. And we had the stuff there to put up, and I was actually away down south. It was my auntie's funeral, so I was way down, and there's a place, the Coo Shed at Ayr. So I thought, I'll nip in there and have a wee look at what they're doing. And I phoned home. It's like, we've got all that optics and everything sitting there. And I told, I think it was Stuart worked here at the time. I said, go and stick them up on the wall and just, do a Facebook post. And I came home to absolute chaos. We ended up with an hour-long queue for about 3 months.
For 3 months.
And it's just like the volume of milk. I think our record was about 550 litres in one day. And that was just out one machine. So we've actually got another 2 machines now just to take the pressure off, because it was hard work. And the optics make a bit of a mess. You're constantly cleaning up. I was down there at 11 o'clock still cleaning up and putting bottles in it. When we were selling, I think it was about 1,000 glass bottles a week.
Wow.
And the idea is people buy a bottle and they can reuse it, but I suspect there's probably only about 10% of bottles ever get reused, but
Okay.
there's plastic. You can take a plastic carton as well, save you buying a bottle all the time. But it was about a 3 month period where it just didn't die off. Um,
But you brought something new to the area, and that is always going to capture people's imagination. And it's something slightly different too, that you
it
can
is,
get your milk, you can add in your flavour of all your different flavours. And I can vouch it tastes damn good as well, which
you,
always brings people too,
you used to
doesn't
get
it?
folk coming out with, like gherkin jars and iron brew bottles and filling them up. They were going down south to see family in Manchester, so they're just filling all these bottles that they could get to take them out with them.
This new gold that was coming out of a machine.
Yeah, it's just it was really good, and getting that feedback from customers. I've never tasted anything like ours, how it used to be in the cream rises, and it gives you a buzz. You just, as farmers, consumers are disconnected from where the food comes from, but farmers are equally as disconnected. We don't understand our consumer. We understand what the packer, the processor wants, because that's what we get paid on. We get paid on yield, or we get paid on these parameters, but we don't get paid in taste. You know,
No, no.
we use varieties that are best yielding. We don't use varieties that are best tasting because they generally don't yield that well. So
And interesting how you go back to the eggs, how you use that consumer feedback to then think about, like that example you had of put it to the side for a week, or that maybe the chickens are just edging on the age
yeah,
and the
too old.
quality. Otherwise, you just don't know that. You don't.
Yeah, and which eggs you can put to which customers. And like to the bakery, they can take old eggs. It's not making any difference to them. Off the older hens, but in the shells a week it doesn't matter. They're just throwing them into a machine to break them anyway.
Yeah.
So you can do that when you're relatively small. As business grows and you're going through wholesalers and different stuff, I think you lose. You know, People complain and it gets lost. It doesn't go. There's always a middleman, and,
Yeah.
and the complaint grows arms and legs or changes. So
Talking about growing arms and legs, you didn't just stop at milkshakes, did you? What else are you doing?
yeah, ice cream. That was a bit of a punt, which seems to have worked. So there's actually a flyer come in one day, and I've seen them before, and it was Farmhouse Ice Cream. And it was inviting me down to a farm just south of Glasgow that was doing ice cream. I thought it kind of sounded a little bit like a franchise thing, but nothing to lose. I'll go down and have a look. So I went down, and this was a couple. They had a dairy farm, and they started making ice cream. It was about 17 years ago, and they put the dairy off, so they just buy the milk in, and they got rid of the cows and just kept going with the ice cream. So the guy, so there's a guy over from the Netherlands. It's a Dutch company, and he hardly spoke a word of English, to be honest. And they kept pestering me after I'd been down there. It's, oh, you'd be interested in buying one? I said, can we come and see you? I said, well, come and see if you want, but I'm not going to promise I'm going to buy anything. So he comes in, and this guy, he's in his 80s. Like, we had to help him into the house. And it's like, oh, I used to look after Germany and all that, but they've changed my area to the UK. And I said, right. I says, well, what's it going to cost? So they tell you. So it wasn't a franchise, but what they do is like a turnkey project. So they'll sell you the machine for making it and all the other stuff as well. So the table but they give you all the training. So they send a sous chef over and train you. So I thought, well, that's quite appealing because I don't know anything about making ice cream. So we probably could have set up for half the capital cost. But it's this training, and they said we'll come over as often as you want. It doesn't cost you anymore. Just pick up the phone and we'll come and support you because they're getting ongoing trade with like the other ingredients. There's always a bit of ongoing trade. So they really want to support you. So right. So I was like, I need to know what it's costing to produce a litre ice cream, and I just couldn't get figures out of him. So I kind of really, at the end of it, what I did was I phoned up the couple and said, can I come back down and see you? I want to take my own milk, cream and eggs and make a batch. And I took June down and the kids and we tried it, and I thought, wow, it was a really good product. And their machine, it was the exact same machine. It was 17 years old. So the machine, that sold itself. The company didn't sell it to me at all, and I thought, right, did some costings. I thought, well, I don't know if this is going to make me any money, but we'll try it. And we need to do some sort of processing with the milk because we don't have a tanker coming in taking surplus. So if we can turn it into ice cream or do something, it gives us a bit of buying time for, liquid milk. You've got a short shelf life. You can't carry it over too long. So
how many flavours of ice cream are you making?
they give us all the recipes, and I think we've 900 in the folder.
Wow.
So we have, I don't know how many we've made to date. We see what works. I stay away from that. I would not have a clue how to even switch the machine on. I've just arm's length. So most places make gelato, and gelato is more milk based and doesn't contain eggs. We're using egg yolks because we've got the eggs anyway, so that suits the farm. And that's like a natural emulsifier. But ice cream's got more cream in it, so I'm biased, but I think it tastes a lot better. If you want taste, you want flavour, you want butterfat in there. And also the trick, if you really want to make money from ice cream, legally you can put 50% air in it.
Can you?
So when you buy a tub of ice cream, you buy a 1 litre tub of ice cream, you don't buy a kilo. They never tell you the weight on the tub of ice cream, funnily enough. So ours there's a little bit of air in it because of the process. There's about 20% air in it, but we could put 50% air in it, and that's when air's cheap, obviously. So if we were going to restaurant, we're not really doing restaurants because I don't think we can do it cheap enough. We can't compete unless we cheapen the product. What we have started doing is, so they came back across last year and then gave us a bit of training on how to make ice cream cakes. So we've been supplying the local hotel with ice cream cakes and stuck them in the menu. So still early days. We'll see how that goes.
Brilliant. And I was lucky enough to taste some of your whiskey ice cream the other night at the Nuffield conference. It was exceptional. It was very, very good. And I think it's everything that you've spoken about in our discussion today shows that you think really differently. That you started from a farming family that took a bit of a U-turn. You got yourself back in, and since then you've not done the I done. You've not just done what generations before have done. You've used the knowledge that you've learned through your experiences, and you've just thought differently. And I think that's what's really nice, actually, to watch how you and June are developing the business. To just that there's people in the industry that are doing things differently. And yes, we were in for the farm that you got started, and I remember the reason we were told we didn't get it was you offered more diversification, which I didn't understand at the time, funnily enough, but now very much do understand the diversification that you offer. And the awards that you've won, various awards, not just the one that I spoke about. And it's great to see that you get the recognition for what you guys are doing as well. So what is coming next? What's where are you in 5 years' time?
I don't know. I think it's sink or swim. So I think when you start borrowing money, it's just a treadmill if you just keep running. trying to dig yourself out a hole all the time. I think. I don't know. We're trying to expand the hens. 80% of the business is still eggs, and we need to be a lot more efficient. No, because we've built it up bit by bit, and then you look at it and you think, if you start from scratch, this is not how you do it. So we're looking at putting a new building up to. Really, we need to double the hens over the next couple of years because we could.
Okay.
If we double the hens, we do it with the same labour, if not less. We can do it a lot more efficiently. So it's kind of a no-brainer, but then it's just the capital cost of doing that is a little bit scary.
Rather large.
But the market's good just now, and the margins are there. And I thought, well, 45 next month. Not that I'm going to stop when I retire, 65, but you probably keep going. But you've got 20 years, and you think my eldest is 9, coming up 10. You thought, so another 10, 15 years, we'll know what they're doing. if I'm going to borrow money, I need to do it now and
Yeah.
have a
And
good
there's
start.
3 of them, so you've got to have something you can split 3 ways as well, Gordon.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the whole thing. Because of what I've built up, I'm so passionate about, I don't want it to be a burden to them. I really want them to take their own, but I want it to be fair. And I'm really, succession, when it goes wrong, I really do think it's the older generation that gets it wrong because they're not open about it and they don't discuss it. And the younger generation just has to take what's given. And then they're the ones that fall out with their siblings. And it's a shame. You see it so many times. And it's topical just now because of the whole tax thing. Hopefully, it makes people look at succession a bit quicker.
Absolutely. Well, it's never too early to start, is it?
Yeah.
Never too early to start.
You don't know what's around the corner. You don't know what they're going to do, and it's up to them. It'd be great if they take it on and have the drive to take it to the next step. I just want to be there to support that. And if they want to all run away, then I'll have a good route and go travelling ourselves.
Good. Well, it's been really good to speak to you, Gordon. Hear your journey, hear about your business, and I wish you all the luck for the future. So thank you. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Stock Talk. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and follow our show. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, you may enjoy some of our other Farm Advisory Service podcasts. This podcast was presented by me, Kirsten Williams, produced by Heather Stewart, edited by Kieran Sim, with executive producers Kirsten Blackwood and Kerry Hammond. Come back next time for more Stock Talk.
The Farm Advisory Service podcast. Audio advice on livestock, crops and soils, environment, rural business, and more. Brought to you in association with the Scottish Government.